Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. My name is Nick. Today I'm going to be doing something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and because of, I just really haven't had the time to do one of these, but today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to be talking about the new Machine Gun Kelly album, Mainstream Sellout. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on that link down below. Go check out the Vinyl Den Facebook group. It's just a cool place to continue the music conversation. There's also a couple of other links down there. There's one for the Vinyl Den merch page where we got these Vinyl Den t-shirts and sweatshirts on there. There's a link for the Vinyl Den Patreon page if you want to support the show. So it's greatly appreciated. You can support the show for as little as $1 a month. There's also a link for the Vinyl Den Spotify and Apple Music playlists where every week we're just compiling music that we're talking about here on the show and put it together for a playlist for everyone to enjoy. And if you enjoy the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time we release new episodes. So like I said in the intro, I've been wanting to do one of these album reviews for a while, and there's a whole list of I've thought about doing, but it was really with this album that I decided to put a video together. So this is, you guys know, I was a big fan of Tickets to My Downfall, which came out in 2020, I think is when Tickets came out. So Mainstream Sellout is the second collaboration between Machine Gun Kelly and Blink-182 drummer Travis Barker. So this was originally announced last year as it was going to be originally called Born with Horns. And I think it was like it might have been like January, February of this year that it was announced that the album title had been changed to Mainstream Sellout. This album definitely kind of follows in the same kind of theme that Tickets did. It still has that kind of, same kind of like punk rock kind of overall sound to it, but there is a kind of a heavier, darker theme to some of these songs. Some of the tracks have kind of a grunge or like alternative rock kind of feel to them. So it's definitely it's a different kind of album than Tickets. If you listen to this album and you're expecting Tickets to My Downfall 2.0, that's not this album. Like I said, there is kind of that overall kind of, sound kind of theme to it, but it's definitely a different kind of album. It's a kind of an evolution in his sound. I know he said earlier in interviews that he wanted to do an album that's a little bit more guitar driven, a little more heavier sound. And I think that's exactly what he did with this album. And he really used this album kind of as a vehicle to fight back against all the negative comments and everything that he's gotten over the course of the last couple of years, whether it's, some of the comments he's made publicly about other musicians or some of the heat he's taken for kind of switching genres from where he had a pretty successful rap career, especially with Hotel Diablo, which came out in, I think 2019, I think is when Hotel came out. So, it was a pretty successful album, and he kind of transitioned to a kind of punk rock sound, early 2000s pop punk sound that, he's been a fan of. He's always had that rock kind of vibe, the persona for really throughout his whole entire career. So it wasn't a huge, I don't think it was a big change to kind of go to this sound from his rap career, but I don't know, I'll kind of go over some of the tracks that I really enjoyed on the album. Some stuff that I can kind of do without, and at the end I'll kind of give you my overall kind of feeling of the album. Before I kind of get into the tracks, I will say I do have a couple of different versions of this. This is the standard version that is available in all the stores out there. There is a version that looks, I think the cover is still the same with this, but I think it's a tour edition, an indie exclusive tour edition that has a couple of live tracks on it. And then there's also a Target version, which is the Target version. And this is the same album as the standard release, but it has an additional track called Love Race with Kellen Quinn on there. So, there is a couple of different versions out there. And I want to say there's 3 different cassette variants also that's available. This is not yet available on vinyl, even though I have seen pre-orders on his Australian website for vinyl, but it doesn't have a release date. I think it says December 2022 on there as an estimated release date, but so that's not really available yet, for pre-sale. But if you are interested in this album, it's available on every streaming service. It's available on iTunes and, of course, CD and cassette. So I'll kind of quickly go through some of the tracks on the album. I don't want this to be too long of a video, but so the album starts with the track "Born with Horns," which, like I said in the intro, it's that's what the original title of the album was. But this kicks off the album and really does a great job of kind of featuring Travis's drumming style. And it, this is a track that really sounds like it could have been on Tickets. It's kind of that same punk rock kind of vibe. It is a good track, and I think it's a good way to kind of kick off the album. And it goes into the second track, which is "God Save Me," which is definitely kind of a darker tone to anything that I think Machine Gun Kelly has done, at least in his rock career. And, it deals with like mental health issues. He does talk about suicide in there. There's discussion of therapy and things like that. So, like I said, it's a much darker kind of tone to some of the stuff, especially anything that he did on Tickets for sure. The third track on there is "Maybe," which he brings in Bring Me the Horizon, which, if you're not familiar with Bring Me the Horizon, they're one of those kind of like alternative metal bands, metalcore, whatever you want to call it. And they're a really good band. If you are unfamiliar with their music, definitely go check that out. I think this collaboration really brings a different kind of feel to the album. It's a different kind of track, definitely than anything that was on Tickets to My Downfall. It's kind of has definitely more of I don't want to say a metal theme or a metal vibe to it, but when you have that kind of collaboration, I think you're always going to kind of have that feel to a track. So, it's probably one of my favorite tracks on the album. The next track, "Drug Dealer," which has Lil Wayne. I will say that this album definitely has a little more of a rap feel to it than Tickets did, just because there's a couple of tracks with Lil Wayne on there. You got Black Bear on the track. There's Young Thug on another track. So there's a lot of different collaborations on this album, which collaborations in rock music has definitely been pretty popular the last couple of years. I think Machine Gun Kelly's done a great job with it, but "Drug Dealer" is definitely one of my favorite tracks on this album. I think the alternative rock kind of sound or grunge kind of sound to this track, I think definitely fits Coulson's voice a little bit better than maybe some of the punk rock kind of stuff that he's done or he did on Tickets. Because I know that was kind of one of the big arguments against him doing this kind of album or being in the punk rock genre, is that his voice didn't always fit the music that he was playing. I think it definitely does in this track, because it's, like I said, it's definitely more of a alternative rock kind of track, a guitar-driven kind of track than maybe some of the other stuff that he's done. And then that kind of takes you into the track "Mainstream Sellout," which is like an outright argument or fight against all the negative comments and everything that he's had over the last couple of years. The recurring line in the song is, "Leave the scene, you're ruining it," which is something that I'm sure he's heard a lot over the last couple of years. And, "Mainstream Sellout," the track itself is probably not one of my favorite tracks on there. It's not something I don't necessarily skip, but it is a good track. But the next track, "Make Up Sex" with Black Bear, I think is definitely one of the highlights of this album. And it sounds like something that could definitely be right off of Tickets to My Downfall. Black Bear does a great job on this track. The next track, "Emo Girl" with Willow, was a track that was released previously. And to be completely honest, I'm not a big fan of... Willow's a good artist, but I don't think her and Machine Gun Kelly really kind of vibe really well on this track. And it's definitely a track I can kind of do without. And I will say that there's 16 tracks on this album. And I could say there's probably at least 3 or 4 that probably could have been cut completely from this album. And it might have made it a better overall album. 5150 is another track that, it sounds like it could have been really right off one of the more recent Blink-182 albums, whether it's 9 or California. It has that kind of recent Blink vibe to it. And overall, I think it's probably one of the best tracks that Machine Gun Kelly has done really throughout his entire career. Just a fantastic track. And then the next track after that is "Paper Cuts," which this is a new version of Paper Cuts. Paper Cuts was released as a single, I think it was last year when it was originally released. And it's probably one of the more mature tracks that Machine Gun Kelly has ever written. And, I think I prefer the older version over the new version. The new version on the track has a rap sequence later in the track that wasn't there in the original version, where he kind of talks about, how he's seen overall in the media and kind of compares himself a little bit to Kanye West. I can kind of probably do without that verse in it, but, it has more of a kind of a grunge vibe overall to the track. And like I said, kind of a darker theme, darker musically, for sure. World War IV is a track that is kind of a sequel to World War III, which is on Tickets to My Downfall, but it's another one of those tracks kind of along the lines of Emo Girl with Willow. World War IV is a track that I can kind of skip. I don't think it really needs to be on the album. And there's 3 other tracks I could really do without. Fake Love Don't Last, Die in California, and Sid and Nancy. They're all good tracks. There's nothing really anything wrong with them. It just, there's nothing really kind of stands out to me. And I kind of, I think removing those 3 or 4 tracks from the album maybe would have made it maybe a little more compact, a little more, it would have been a tighter album without those for sure. And I guess that kind of takes me to probably 2 of my favorite tracks on this album. The first one is A with Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne does a great job on here. This is an absolute banger, and it definitely has more of a rap vibe than any other track on this album. And really kind of sounds like something that could have been off of one of MGK's earlier albums, whether it's Hotel Diablo or whatever it is. But just an absolutely fantastic track. It's a track that probably a lot of people out there might not kind of vibe with them if you're more of a traditional kind of rock fan. But, I definitely think it's a great track. And then the album ends with Twin Flame, which I think is a great way to finish the album. It's a kind of the way I kind of see it as a love letter to Megan Fox's girlfriend. And, the track itself ends with a great drum flurry from Travis. He does a great job at the end of the track, but he kind of finished Tickets to My Downfall in kind of a similar way. So, Twin Flame, it's a great track. Probably, I think it really is, like I said, a perfect way to kind of end the album. Overall, I think it is a really good album. Do I think it's better than Tickets to My Downfall? Probably not. I feel like the album was a little sloppy at times, maybe a little more drawn out than it could have been. Like I said, he could have easily trimmed 3 or 4 tracks off this album and probably made it a better album. But, it's an album that when I first listened to it, I wasn't hugely impressed with it, but it's definitely grown on me the more I've listened to it. And I've, taken the last week and, I probably listened to it a dozen or more times, and it's definitely grown on me. Overall, if I were to give, I think if I were to score Tickets to My Downfall, I probably would have an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. And I think Mainstream Sellout is pretty close to it. I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10, which is still a really good album. But, had he trimmed a couple of those tracks off there, I probably would have had a better overall view of the album. So I guess that's kind of the way I'll kind of sum up my review is there are, I'd say, probably a good 6 or 8 tracks on this album that are absolutely fantastic. Some of the best work that Machine Gun Kelly has done. Some of the best drum work that Travis has ever done. Musically, just an overall fantastic, those 6 or 7 or 8 tracks, are definitely more of an evolution of what Machine Gun Kelly had done on Tickets to My Downfall, anything else previously in his career. More of those like darker, kind of mature tones. I kind of like where he's going with his music. I just think that some of the kind of tracks on there that I could kind of do without, Emo Girl, World War IV, definitely Sid and Nancy, Die in California. There's a couple of tracks, like I said, that he could have trimmed out of there and probably made it a better overall album. But, I think it's I'm sure it's probably going to be another number 1 or at least a top 5 album. And, I kind of like where he's going musically with all this, but, I kind of want to see more from him. I want to see him evolve his sound a little bit more. But, overall, I think it is a really good album. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think of this album, because, like I said, overall, I think it is a really good album. I fully expect this to be a Billboard #1 hit, just like Tickets to My Downfall was. So, overall, I really enjoyed the album, but let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. And that's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.